This is The Change Physician, episode 256. Welcome back to The Change Physician. I'm Melissa Cady, the Challenge Doctor, with my co-host from the West Coast, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, for a conversation on can we be more fun, or how can we be more fun? We decided to just start off with something about being more fun, and we just paused and looked at each other and like, let's just start an episode. So I think that's the dilemma. You think about podcasts out there and you're either being educated, entertained, those are like the top two things. And
or educated and entertained, edutainment.
Yes. And so it's some combination usually. That's probably what people want the most, if they can learn but have a good time at the same time. And I think this all came about because we're talking about introverted versus extroverted and topics.
Well, no, actually, you specifically said as well. We were asking what would you talk about if someone said that, talk about something interesting, what would you talk about?
Yeah.
And then you were pushing me and you were like, well, what would you say at like a dinner party or something? And I was like, I don't know, because most of the stuff I find super boring. And we're like, well, maybe we need to be more fun, right? So I think that is a dilemma, right? I think you're like, I crave interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I think this is an issue. Mm-hmm. And as you start learning more, to have an interesting conversation becomes more difficult, particularly if you have not the good mindset. Like one of the strengths of my wife is she's curious. Like we will go out with people and she, not necessarily, I don't want to say like, it sounds like interrogating, but she just gets very interested in what they have to say. Right. And she'll learn all this stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. And just be very open to being curious, where I am not nearly as open. And I hate small talk. Like I know what the point of it is, but man, I don't care. Like I barely care about sports. There's a little bit sometimes I might be interested in, like right now there's this Pac-12 issue with all those traders that are leaving, and we hate them all because the Beavers are the best and they still stayed strong. But anyway, but I don't want to talk about that. And I don't really necessarily like, oh, well, how's the weather? I'm like, the weather is outside and I don't really, it's hot. Yay, whatever. But interesting conversation to me is more philosophical discussion. I'm really interested in, if you listen to this podcast, I'm interested in neuroscience. I'm interested in how the brain activates. I'm kind of interested in how we construct our realities. And there's not a lot of people that are interested in that, or at least are interested in such a way that we can have like a meaningful conversation, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so it becomes very challenging. And then I for hobbies and things, like I don't really drink a lot. I've been into wine at one time and I'm not really, because we don't drink it anymore. And I don't know. So then you're like, well, what the hell do you talk about? I don't know. What do you talk about when you go out with people?
What I've noticed is I tend to surround myself with other people who tend to be really funny. I think it takes, and I wasn't like cognitively doing this. Like I didn't seek out, I need to go find a fun person. I think many humans are naturally gravitating towards people like that. My husband is extremely funny and can be a lot of fun to be around. And so surprise, surprise, I ended up marrying him. It obviously helps that he loves me. And so it's mutual, but we're very much yin yang. I'm Spock, he's Kirk. So it's, at least that's our yin yang description. But I kind of follow the lead of a lot of people who are funny. I'm really good. I feel like I have a really good sense of humor. And so it doesn't mean I'm necessarily making other people laugh. If I make people laugh, it's because I'm goofy, or I'm kind of a weird combination of nerdy, trying to like play on words and that kind of stuff, but not because I'm genuinely the storyteller. In fact, if my husband and I were, had to save our lives by having a good story, it would not be me doing it. So my husband would definitely be the storyteller. He's just, he's got a natural knack for it. And it's not even like it almost just exudes out of, like, it's not overthought. It just kind of is part of his personality. I think if I try, I'm trying too hard and it just doesn't come out as genuine as he, does it. But I think that when you have a couple people like that in an environment, even if there's some people that are a little introverted, I mean, there's an extroverted part of me for sure, but it's easier for that to flow and you bounce off each other and it just kind of becomes a really organic process. But I consider myself and you, we're very much have a big introverted part of ourselves. And so I think I enjoy meaningful conversations too. I used to have extreme social phobia and anxiety about being around big groups of people and me being a focus of attention. I would start overthinking the words coming out of my mouth, which is ironic because professionally, I really enjoy and feel very comfortable and have a lot of confidence in doing presentation. I still get nervous just like anyone else, but I feel compelled that there's so much more meaning behind what I'm trying to offer the world. Like I'm serving, I feel like that's the priority so I can overcome those social fears. And sometimes I can play off stuff and I can make the audience laugh occasionally, but I wouldn't say that I'm like the funnest person to be around per se when I'm in work mode, because I take things so seriously. Sometimes it's hard for me to like relax because I take my job so seriously. I guess that's what I'm saying. And it's really, my husband and I have had this conversation. It's like many people out there don't really truly know me because I don't open up in the way where people, it's like they have a hard time understanding me because I can be so robotic in what I'm doing and just take care of business and not be emotional about it, that it's hard for a lot of people that are not like that to relate to me. So I'm going down a tangent from what you asked, because it's those meaningful small conversations with people that are out of the work environment that help people connect with me. And then it becomes easier to have fun with those people. So I don't know if that all makes sense. But just to walk in a room and be the life of the party and fun, like that's just not usually how it works with me.
Well, and I we're thinking like, how could we be more fun? I was just kind of think about that, because basically what you're saying is, you need a more small, intimate setting to get to know the people before you open up and have more fun.
Well, I think it's just people. I think when people feel more like at ease with you, more relaxed, that organic, like fun and stuff can happen more easily. But if you walk into an air of like seriousness, I think, unless it's just your natural inclination to be like the clown or be funny or whatever, it's hard for that to develop from people that are not always like that. It's where you feel safe, like you said, in other conversations and comfortable, and that stuff can happen more easily. Obviously, funny things that just happen in front of you and you react to, that's different. But to be more fun in general, I need to be out of the work environment. That's one thing I know for sure. But to be more fun in this, I honestly think that we intersperse occasionally some funny stuff just naturally between us, because we've been working with each other for several years already in this podcast. But I think a lot of people in the change physician community, or someone just passing by, they want to relate to us and feel like they're heard and that we get their challenges or issues, or maybe we're talking about stuff that no one is really talking about, or they're not comfortable, or they never really put it into words. And I've talked to someone recently, I didn't realize how much she was listening to our podcast, and said she really enjoys our conversations. And so I think I feel the value in our podcast is more from a inspiration, maybe a little bit of education, but just kind of some vindication or acknowledgement of the struggles that other physicians, have, and not feeling alone. So that's what I feel like. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to be more fun, but I can't really change who I am. And, you know, do you have any words of wisdom there?
How to be more fun.
Well, you're asking me, I'm going to throw it back at you.
Well, I guess what I got out of what you're talking about is that on the podcast, we keep it real. And so maybe that's why people listen, and
Yeah.
Not necessarily on the topic of how to make it more fun or whatever, but from a podcast standpoint, I do think we don't tend to sugarcoat things, I don't think.
No.
And we try to be much more realistic. I'm not sure if any of that is super, super fun. Maybe we take the fun out of things by just telling the truth.
No suspense.
no suspense. But I'd be, I from a fun standpoint on how to be more fun, I think it's you mentioned there's certain people that come in and can be almost like this nexus of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to realize whether or not you are that nexus or nexi, nexi, whatever. I am not a nexus. I don't think. Maybe I'm curious, because what we perceive ourselves to be may be completely different than what other people perceive us to be. But I can think off the top of my head some of my friends that were very much this kind of nexus, and they were people that that sort of built the room. And I almost picture like them as being this node that all these little things would come out of. And I always did better with a good nexi. When I was in college, there were certain people that if you went out with them, you're probably going to have a good time, because the dynamic was different. Mm-hmm. I also think for how to be more fun is being able to exit your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. I think some of the hardest time is in a mixed group where there's people I know and people I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's almost better if everybody doesn't know each other.
Yeah.
I actually like that a lot more than anything, unless it's a close group of, unless it's people that I do know and we have like a close group. It's like the extremes. I want everybody not to know each other, or I want to be in a group of people that I can actually sit down and have a conversation with and enjoy it, Yeah. And that I think is more fun. And the reason I kind of wonder about that group of when people don't know anybody, there's literally no expectations. Mm-hmm. And so nobody knows who you are. You're not carrying any baggage. You don't know who they are. And it just it's very freeing. I don't know if anybody has never done this, like literally you go to an event, not a medical event, because those usually suck and they're boring and nobody talks. But if you go to something else, like again, these are mostly like these kind of businessy ones where they're a conference and they have speakers and whatever, and you don't know anybody, and you go to, and everybody's there actually wanting to meet, so the environment is different. Yeah. And that is super fun. I still have communication with people I've met at conferences 10 years ago. And I don't know. I find that to be fun. I would love to see that to be, increasing fun. How do you do that on a normal day-to-day basis? I'm not exactly sure. Yeah. Like how do people construct environments where they can have this connectivity and fun with others it may not be possible on a day-to-day basis, but how do you do it long-term? Mm-hmm. When, whatever job you're in, we tend to be physicists, kind of get isolated, rather than, we have our own little practice groups and things. There is sort of this lack of connection on a lot of things. How do you kind of foster that? And I would be very curious if there's a listener out there that has a good tool set for it. What was I haven't answered this, so I'm going to ask you first, but I know I have my own for this, what was your favorite practice environment or your favorite work environment that you ever worked in?
Academics.
When you were in residency, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I felt, and I was fresh out too. It just gave you an opportunity to like have all the dynamics of working and learning as a team versus in a solo isolated situation, like in private practice today. Like I feel like your brain is always like you're always constantly keeping it up to date versus like getting down to the minimal needs of what you need to know. So yeah, it just felt like teamwork. It felt like a team thing, like sports, and you know, it has like in the trenches together. It just really builds connection a lot tighter.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because the first thing when you're saying the teamwork, that was the reason I went into one of the reasons I went into anesthesia, is I was coming off my internal medicine months as a third year, and I hated it like with a passion, and ended up in the OR and loved it because it seemed like a dance, and there seemed to be like collegiality. Now, granted, that's not always the case, particularly in a private practice setting, but at the time I found it very attractive. But without a doubt, my favorite practice environment that I've ever been in fact, it was the favorite place I've ever worked, was in the Navy. And the clinic that we had in the Navy, this was the pain clinic there, and there was a number of us. They were just the best. Like they were almost all guys. There was one senior captain, and she wasn't there as much as we were. And but it was just like kind of. And I think what made it so much fun is that we could interplay and joke off of each other. It was just like being, this is going to sound horrible too. It's like living in the dorms with, you know, your good friends, like, because in the dorms, it's, you know, you get your first time to step out,
a lot of time around each other,
people, and you're spending your time. And it was just fun, man. We had the office, we all were in the same office. So they had the 3 or 4 computers set up. So you would go and see your patients, but come back, but there was no walls. And so we would literally talk back and forth, you know, bitch and complain, or say this or that, or, you know, whatever. And it was just the best. Like, it was the absolute best. And I say that as, it's a weird thing because I work from home 100% remote. It's just me. I love being able to work from home 100, you know, being just me, but I absolutely 100% miss that camaraderie, you know.
Yeah, I do too.
I think at this stage in my life, I'm not sure if I would ever still want to drive someplace and have to be in an office when I can commute 10 feet. But man, it was those are the kind of environments I like, is you're with people, and you have a relationship with them in such a way where you feel safe, and you can then have these conversations. We had some killer conversations, I have to say. I learned a ton at that job about all sorts of stuff. I don't know. I think I'm a little off topic on how to be more fun, but I just, that's a place I had a lot of fun when I was in practice.
Yeah. Well, you know what I wrote some notes down. I mean, there's a commonality you all have in what you're pursuing and doing that helps. And you have frequency. And there's a lot of learning going on in that environment. And I was just thinking about, you know, your wife enjoying learning about people, and the thing that it's, when you think about travel, meeting new people, there's all this like novelty. There's learning going on, but in a different kind of learning, not your, you know, science and talking about neuroscience, stuff like that, but you're learning about, you know, you're seeing new things, you're meeting new people, and these people have stories, and it's always fascinating to learn these new stories if you're curious, like your wife is. And you never know when those people could become great long-term connections too. But there's the novelty, the learning, there's excitement with all of that. And when you can put it in an environment where there's repetition and frequency, and then you have a common thread, maybe you're, you know, a mother and you have another person's the mother, like you never know what that common thread might be, or maybe your values and things you learn over time from being around these people. Initially, it is uncomfortable in a new environment because you don't know anybody, but you have to be curious enough or have enough will to put yourself in that discomfort temporarily to acknowledge that there are going to be these benefits a lot of times when you start connecting, as people feel more comfortable and they see you more. And then eventually you have those small talk conversations, and then boom, there might be a new friendship there. And we had talked on the Saturday Salutations recently about, I was going to go pursue maybe doing some dancing in these classes, kind of like a workout class, but it's just dancing. And I think to myself, that's one of those steps that helps with tying yourself to another community that you may or may not fit well in. You don't know until you do it. And all these different people from different walks of life are going to be there, and it's not going to be just all medical people. So this is a perfect example of, you're learning novel new dance moves each time, novel new people each time. You're doing the thing you actually say you love doing, but you're not doing because you don't go to the clubs at night anymore in downtown. Like, you've got to create it in a different environment. So as much as you especially post-pandemic, there's a tendency for people to just withdraw, and they've gotten the routines of being at home and not being around people. I want to rebranch. And so I think for people that want to have more fun, I'm not the expert at it, but I would say I have struggled with, recreating or living some hobbies or creating new ones at times. But you have to go out there and explore. And you got to put yourself in a learning or novel environment with new people. And if you are really introverted and you want to, expand yourself a little bit, you can find an art thing. You can go paint, and you can kind of introvert yourself a little bit there, but you're surrounded by people, but they're not expecting you to talk to everyone, but spontaneously, organically, things can happen. You might hit off a conversation with one person. So anyway, that would be my, when you think about being more fun or having more fun, I guess that's the question. But you have to create, being fun by yourself, I guess that's keeping yourself occupied, but it really requires connections and people. So you're going to have to find a place to, get comfortable with other people so that you can have more fun and where there's not a lot of stress. You don't want to, that's what I can think of. What are you making little faces for?
Well, I was just thinking about that, like having fun by yourself versus with other people.
I can always have fun by myself.
Yeah, because I was thinking, like, sometimes I entertain myself quite good, and I'm I think we think we're funny, right? Yes, so of course we think we're funny. And I don't know, I'm just like doing weird stuff. But the difference is when having fun by yourself, I think I always want to have the need then to share it with somebody. And when you don't have anybody to share it with, or whatever you're having fun with, nobody's interested with, then it doesn't seem quite as fun anymore as compared to a group. But it just made me think about that for a while, because you were like, oh yeah, I don't know if you can have fun by yourself as much. And like, I have fun by myself, but when you'd have something, I'm like, okay, let's say you were a fisher or a fisherman and you love to go out fishing, and that can be very solitary, and you go out fishing and then you have a really great time fishing.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people are going to want to come home and tell somebody about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not, but I think so.
Well, even if you don't, if you want to go have that fun by yourself, there's a really important part to that. You're intentional and you're scheduling it.
Well, you're intentional in scheduling, but you're still by yourself. What I'm kind of wondering is if when we have fun, is the need to share in there as well? I feel like I have a need to share. Like, I think that's one of the things I would be missing, is if I'm doing something fun and I'm down with myself, and then maybe nobody asks about it, and I initiate a conversation and people aren't as interested in that. I think that I like the sharing aspect would make it more fun. So
there's plenty of people that never share and they're fine with that. But
I know that is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
but maybe I'm like technically an ambivert, so I'm kind of wondering if that has something to do with
wanting to share
that aspect. You see, this is how my brain works, people. Is then I start doing these questions and I'm wondering. The first thing I want to do is like, what's the difference on how the need to share and what's not the need to share, and is there any psychological data on that, and what kind of core thing on that is?
Well, it's like you're reliving it.
Well, or if there's a fundamental need to share, why is that? Like, why would we need to share if the experience in and of itself is satisfying?
Maybe you're curious if other people are interested or like the same thing, or is it just to make yourself feel better you did something important?
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe there's some importance thing. Make it
ego.
Maybe it's an ego. So maybe my need to feel like I'm sharing something that is totally ego.
If anyone wants to chime in, feel free to leave a comment. We're just dissecting out fun, which probably makes it less fun, but I think all of us can agree that we all want to have fun, and if we're in the drudgery and of the routine, the monotonous, it can really steal away our energy, from our relationships, from our quality of life, all those things. So I think it's really important that we need to have. Speaking of which, we always talk about pain stuff. I feel like learning to have fun, creating fun, being part of fun, like it's really, really, really important, to help with people having, I would call it wellness. I mean, laughing and having a good time with people and great connections. We know how incredibly important that is. In fact, this is one of the last things I wanted to bring up, is that I think Netflix came out with some Blue Zones docuseries. Did you see that?
Oh yeah. I saw the advertisement for it. I haven't watched it yet, but
yeah, Corey had already saved it before I told him about it, and so we're gonna watch it at some point. So maybe we should report on that once we watch it.
yeah, I mean, we've talked about Blue Zones before.
Yep, but there might be something in there that.
Well, I think just before on a one of our Saturday salutations, which when we do the live Facebooks, we're talking about common themes, right? And I think that's one of the things about any of this stuff is there's probably some simplicity to having fun that it gets over complexified. Like, and some people are like, what are you talking about fun for? You just have fun. And I was like, well, sometimes you just don't have fun, or maybe you kind of move to a place where you lost where that little fun thing is.
Yeah.
But usually they're kind of like simple things, like in your kid, like riding a bike. That was fun. Playing hide and seek, that was fun. Actually, it'd probably be fun now. In fact, if we should do like I was my
adult hide and seek.
Oh my God. There were some groups. I feel like this was actually happening here because my son started doing, they were playing some of these hide and seek games. My son's in college, and they were these, with all these things, they organize groups or whatever. And they're kind of hide and seek variants, like Infected, where it's like a tag game and you turn, and then everybody's zombie running around and everything like that. But, I swear, I'm almost positive I saw like some post about like adults who were doing this, like to play, like literally tag and these things that we used to do as kids.
Yeah.
Why didn't I do that? That could have been, well, I think actually because they were like in their 20s or early 30s. I'm like, they probably don't want some 50-year-old guy coming out and say, oh, I want to play sardines. Sardines was the best. Oh my God. We used to have so much fun playing sardines. But yeah, I guess maybe as we get older, some of those simple pleasures we need to be being back more.
Yeah.
Who says you can't play sardines when you're 50? Jeez.
Who says, husband and wife that don't have children can't go do all the, watch the children's movies and children, stuff out there? Like,
oh yeah, you can sing Frozen. You should be able to sing Frozen just as much as anybody else.
I don't know about that. I'm just, I'm thinking about a lot of the, like, even like animal park stuff. Like, we're like the only ones that are like not there with, don't have kids. A lot of these times when we travel, we go to a lot of these, zoos and other things. And it just keeps you in touch with some, I don't know, things that make you smile and make you appreciate things. And I just freaking love, especially little marmoset monkeys, and have them all run all over you. I mean, it's just so damn cool. So yeah, speaking of which, I think that picture right there, I got a marmoset monkey on my head. I don't know if you can even see that. Yeah, there's a Tasmanian devil on my marmoset monkey, and then oh God, what was the name of that little bear looking thing? Bear
like
cat,
a red panda kind of
red
a thing.
panda, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
well, I was just thinking that we talked about having like our own change physician event. I'm like, we can have a change physician event, and we can have adult games like tag, hide and seek,
animal encounters, of the best kind.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Of the whole, we can, there could be the shark tank, and then there could be the marmoset, whatever, or the butterfly room. I don't know, but it'd be fun.
Hey, you don't need to worry about kids running around and all that stuff. But
yeah.
Well, cool. Well, any last comments before you take us out?
Well, not a whole lot, because I'm not exactly sure what we've covered here and accomplished or figured out. But what are your strategies for fun, whoever you are? How have you maintained having fun as you get older? Are there any hints or strategies that you would want to spread for those of us who seem to be deficient in the fun gene? You can always email me directly at drkevin@thechangephysician.com. I'll share them if you want me to share them, but if you just have something specific, let me know. I could use it. And until next time, stay well.
Take care.